Even in modern times, right violations still play a very big issue in Mexico. Today we're going to talk about the CNDH, but what exactly does it do and why is it so important? We'll take a closer look into its mission, its structure, and the impact of the CNDH.
In order to give a little context, Comisión Nacional de Derechos Humanos was created after decades of abuse of power in Mexico. That's why the creation of the CNDH was seen as a huge step forward. Over the years, the CNDH has been involved in several key cases, like the Tlatlaya massacre in 2014. In the town of Tlatlaya, 22 people were killed by soldiers. At first, authorities said it was a shootout, but the CNDH found that many of them were actually executed after giving up. It exposed abuse and asked for punishment for the soldiers and their military training. Another case was the Ayotzinapa students in 2014. 40 students from rural school disappeared near Guerrero. The government's version of the story didn't match the facts. The CNDH found signs of a cover-up, destroyed evidence, and possible involvement of police and the army. It demanded a full investigation and justice for the families. Another thing to mention is the National Guard abuses. The National Guard was created for public safety, but there have been many complaints about how they treat people. The CNDH reported cases of violence, illegal detentions, and abuse, especially against migrants. It called for clear rules and stronger respect for human rights.
Mexico's National Human Rights Commission. At first, the CNDH wasn't fully independent. It was created on June 6 in 1990s as part of the Interior Ministry, PSGOP, meaning it was still under the federal government's control. That caused a lot of criticism because how can an agency defend human rights if it answers to the same agency of the same government that might be violating them? So in 1992, it gained a bit more of freedom by becoming the centralized agency, but it still wasn't truly autonomous. Finally, in 1999, a constitutional reform to Article 102 in the Section B gave the CNDH full autonomy, and from that point on, it became a constitutional reform, which means that it works independently and with its own legal status and full authority to defend human rights in Mexico. Today, the person in charge is the president of the CNDH, who is appointed by the Senate and serves for 5 years. And during that time, they're not allowed to hold any other job, might be private or public. And to qualify, the candidate must be Mexican by birth, have over 35 years old, and have a good reputation and no criminal record. There is also a consultative council made up of 10 people, also chosen by the Senate, and they help to set the internal rules, to approve the budget, and to make sure everything is working properly.
The CNDH plays a very important role in Mexico. Its main job is to protect and promote human rights, especially when they are violated by government authorities. It investigates complaints, releases reports, and issues recommendations, which are public documents that explain what happened and what should be done to fix it. Even though these recommendations are not legally binding, they carry a lot of moral and political weight. The media and public opinion often pressure institutions to respond. One major example was in 1995 when the CNDH exposed the Aguas Blancas massacre, leading to legal and political consequences. So, the CNDH helps make governments more accountable and gives people a voice when their rights are violated.
Yes, it hasn't been absorbed by any other department. It remains an autonomous constitutional body in Mexico. However, in recent years, it has been heavily criticized for being too close to the government and not relating strongly to serious human rights relations. For example, during the current administration, it had been silent for several controversial cases. That's why many civil society organizations say this commission has lost credibility. The current president is Rosario Piedra Ibarra, who was re-elected in 2024. Her leadership has also caused critics to say she lacks independence and doesn't respond firmly to abuses committed by the authorities.
So, should the CNDH remain autonomous? Although it has its shortcomings, it is necessary. A human rights institution must be independent in order to do its job right. If it depends on the government, it can investigate or speak out when the government itself is violating rights. But autonomy isn't enough. What really matters is who runs it and how committed they are to justice. The CNDH needs to be led by qualified and neutral people who truly care about defending human rights, not about protecting political interests.